Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 6. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. You deserve it. Let's watch.
You know what?
Whew.
I know when I first walked in here the first time, I know that there was a connection like so quick and
Like crippling.
immediately. Sounds crazy, right? But
Yeah.
I like felt it, and you told me you felt it, and I was
In the very beginning, we heard from her, Jessica, right? Yeah. That she has a 10-year-old daughter, and she said, I think I'll know the right time to tell the person I'm dating that I have a child. And we heard from her earlier in the lounge, and she said she was going to tell Jimmy in this date. And according to my, what I would do if I were in her shoes, I mean, one, like I said, I would just tell people right off the bat. And if they're going to judge me for that, then that's a good litmus test for someone I don't want to date. But if I'm not doing that, then I would not have waited until this moment to say something, because he is talking like someone on Love is Blind that is about to reveal he's committing to Jessica. And in all likelihood, he has been moving away from other potential partners, right? And putting all of his eggs in the Jessica basket. I think that's too late, because I think he could feel like it's late in the game. It could feel like a lie, even if he's totally cool with it. But let's say that he's not. And I've already been over the problems with that. But it's also an understandable preference for some people, right? They might not be ready to have kids. Stepkids are kids, and you have to be a parent. But if I were her right now, because we heard earlier that she said she was planning on saying something, I would interrupt him right now. Before you say that, I'm really glad you're saying that. It's really great. I think I agree with everything that you said and what you're going to say. But there's been something that I've been wanting to tell you, and I have to tell you now, and then tell him so that he doesn't commit and hang himself out to dry. But I don't know. We'll hope that things go okay.
truthfully, what I'm looking for here is someone that is accepting of my family, because I had insecurities growing up that prevented me from dating certain women that I felt that weren't accepting towards how I grew up, or how my family is, or how they go about things. My family is great people.
Okay, we're learning. I'm taking notes that I think what he's talking about is poverty. I'm not sure, but at the very least, he's saying that he felt growing up that he was being judged for his family and maybe the demographic. I don't know.
Nothing negative. It's just there was definitely a time in my life to where I was really insecure about not having as much as some of my friends in school.
I think I can empathize.
Right. Sounds like he's talking about poverty. Okay.
People may be hesitant to be accepting of. So I totally get that. But you should take pride in whatever you've been through and whatever has led you to where you are now, because you are I feel like some of the physical response I have to you is because I can feel that you are such a good person.
Yeah, when I watch the show and I hear something like that, that is promising or relatable at the very least. People on the show, they fall in love for a variety of reasons. They will talk about why they're falling in love, but what she just said right there is very relatable to me. That vibe of wanting to be with, it's hard to put into words, the way she said it, that, just at your core, a good person. A lot of benefits emerge from finding someone with that general quality. Most people are good, but how do I put this in the words for myself? With my wife, for example, that, I'll just say for Stacy, she cares and puts effort and is very consistent about that and is considerate. So that is that's my version of good, the opposite of being self-centered, the opposite of being flighty about noticing things. And so I don't know I guess you could think about it for yourself. What is that? Because that's not usually the kinds of things you hear talked about on the internet in terms of what you should be looking for, the green flags, if you will. It's mainly red flags that are discussed, right? But what about green flags? What are the things that you value? What are things that you feel like you should be looking for, right? How do you even find those things out? How do you know you're not just convincing yourself? Which I would ask Jessica is, how do you know? What are you basing it on? And maybe there's actual data. And Jimmy does seem like a good person, but on this show, sometimes the initial impression isn't exactly what we find to be true consistently throughout at least the show.
I think the most important parts of me I've had the hardest time sharing with you because I'm like so terrified about like how you're going to receive it.
Sounds like a secret.
When I think of secretive, I think of something that has like a negative, I don't know. It's not anything like that.
All right, say it. Just say it. Just say it.
I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I'm not just going to coast over that like I'm delivering that like it's not a big thing. And me addressing that with you and telling you like that's the most important part of my life.
Okay. She just said it, and she's doing pretty well. They're editing it, I can tell, which is annoying. They're throwing in all these like facial expressions and stuff and pauses that I don't think exist, which is annoying.
There's certain conversations we can't have without you knowing that first.
How come we didn't talk about that earlier?
Yeah. He could feel betrayed, lied to, deceived, even if he was fine with it, right? It's hurtful and it's concerning. People say, and it's a common phrase, healthy relationships are based on a foundation of trust. What do we mean by that? It's a lot of different things, but in the most fundamental, easy way of looking at it is trust that what the person is telling you and what they're not telling you is a reflection of reality and is in consideration of your feelings. And when you are with someone who exhibits even just one moment where they don't do that by either directly lying to you or omitting something that is pretty important, especially when it's not just absent-mindedness, which could also be an issue because you're not paying enough attention or putting enough effort into making sure that you remember to tell someone, but also, in this situation, and we can understand where she's coming from, but to wait till this point, right? It's logical to conclude when push comes to shove, you care about your feelings more than telling me something that you know that I would want to know. And people start thinking about all sorts of things, right? Infidelity comes to mind. You might have a fling one night, and because you don't want to tell me about it, you're just not going to tell me about it. It starts to paranoid an individual for logical reasons. And I always say, stop lying. Stop lying by omission. Stop deceiving. Think about it. And maybe this will all turn out, but in the very beginning, when they were talking about it with her, when she said something like, I think I'll know the right moment. And I said then, that looks like she is saying, I don't want to say it, and I have no way of determining when I should say it, so I'll just wait for the right moment. I'm glad she said something here because she actually could have waited, but this seems as though she's realizing I have to say something now. It is unusually cruel to not say something now. I have to say something now. By the time you're at that point, you've already caused damage. And so you can harm others through omission of the truth, partially because you don't sit down and just really think about what you're doing. Really walk through, why am I doing this? What effect will this have on them? How do I plan in advance? If I were talking to Jessica after she said those initial things, I would have talked with, because this could potentially shoot her in the foot, right? She wants to fall in love. This could ruin that. Or at the very least, set a foundation that is already having cracks in the foundation, you know? And I would advise her to think about a way of having a system before she gets there so that she can remind herself to overcome her impulse. The way she described it, she's waiting for an impulse to tell him. And as predicted, that's not going to come because there's a lot of suppression of that impulse. A real common thing has to do with conflict in marriage and relationships. You have, your life and you're living your life with your partner and they do that thing that bugs you. It's long-term relationships and it hurts your feelings and it gets under your skin. You're like, oh, there's that thing. Okay, there's a number of different patterns from there. And one is that there's the pattern of avoid it and to ruminate and stew on it or suppress it or something. And then this is one particular scenario. It's not for everybody, but over time you learn that stuffing those feelings just leads to a buildup of anger and resentment and hurt and the pushing away of your partner until it explodes. And then you let it all out. And then you evaluate it after doing that 35 times and realize that's not the best way to go. So I have to have a plan. And when my partner hurts my feelings and I think about it and I think, okay, normally I would have an impulse to avoid, but I know from the past that actually will lead down a road that will be harmful for both of us, including me. So it's self-serving to go against my impulse and actually say something to my partner, even though I don't want to and I don't want to get into a fight and it's just a small thing. It's not that big of a deal. I can cope with this, but if I zoom out, it'll pile up and I will get distant and more resentful and then it'll explode and okay, deep breath. Tell my partner, not a big deal, but the thing you did yesterday, it kind of hurt my feelings. Not a big deal. And I'm telling you this because I don't want this to build up over time. And it could just be me because I'm sensitive about that, but I'm just telling you that. And I guess I'm just looking for that you hear me and you understand. You don't even have to change. And by the way, I kind of recommend that if it's accurate that you actually word things that way, because, addresses a lot of different defenses from partners of like, why are you making such a big deal about this? I'm not making a big deal. It's just, this is a new pattern I'm trying to use that will be more healthy for us. If I let it out every now and then, it won't explode later on, or you're too sensitive, this isn't my fault. So you head that off of the past by saying it could be just me. I could be too sensitive to normal behavior. I don't know. A lot of caveats will head off defensiveness. And by the way, if you're on the receiving end of that sort of stuff, you really want to cultivate that because that kind of communication from your partner is done with a lot of fear. It'd be a much better world, especially in marriage, if people could just immediately say, hey, that kind of hurt my feelings. It's not a big deal, but it kind of hurt my feelings. And then the other person says, oh, sorry, thanks for telling me. I didn't know that. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. End of story, end of conflict. I can tell you how many times I'm working with couples and I will get to that point after years and I'll just celebrate. I was like, you did it. You did something that 99% of couples could never do. Not only are you doing so much better than before, which is on the brink of divorce, but you're really advanced. And I just wish the whole world did this more. I wish nations did this. I wish politicians did this. Just, hey, that kind of hurt my feelings. There'd be less violence. There's just so much that could be improved. So it is something that I think we could at least think about in terms of what we choose to not say and how we follow our impulses habitually without being differentiated and looking down from above and saying like, is this really working for me?
How come we didn't talk about that earlier?
It's not something I'm just going to lead with because I want people to get to know me.
That's logical, her response, but her first response should be, I know, I'm so sorry. That should be her first response. Empathy. As
an individual first and establish a relationship with me, even though I'm so proud of it, it's my greatest accomplishment. I want to talk about it, but We haven't talked about, like, when do you want to have children?
Yikes. So she's deflecting, avoiding responsibility. There's a version of her response that is like, I know, I'm sorry. I feel really bad that I didn't tell you. It's been eating away at me. But I sometimes wonder if anyone would give me a chance, and that's not your fault.
It's my greatest accomplishment. I want to talk about it, but, we haven't talked about, like, when do you want to have children, or, like, how many kids do you want to have? Because that's a good conversation starter for me to...
Yeah. Well, now it sounds like is she blaming him? She's saying, we never talked about having kids or not, and that would have been a good conversation. What? No.
Be like, okay, well, yeah, like, I kind of already have a head start on that. I have a child from a previous relationship.
Yeah.
Now, I think she does have altruism and empathy, or she's capable of it. She probably does have remorse, but if so, then there's a possibility that she's retreating to a defensive place right now where the questions he's asking are painful to her given her history or given society's messages to her. And she's clamming up a little bit and getting a little defensive when it would have been, I think, more helpful for her to say what I was role-playing earlier, something along the lines, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to lose you. That I think that would help if she said something like that.
I totally get it. I wouldn't want you to throw that at me first thing. By the way, I'm not, that's not a deal breaker for me, and I don't think, like, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like I've gotten to know you so much, and,
Okay, so all's well that ends well. This just gave me an opportunity to yammer about the things I yammered about. It doesn't really apply here because although, I don't know, it still could kind of apply in that he might wonder in the future if she is withholding things for selfish or other reasons, and that could erode trust for him in her.
I appreciate you sharing that, and that's incredible. Can I ask, like, she's 10 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like, was that someone that you were...
Yeah. So on one hand, someone might ask this question for dubious reasons, like, well, I don't want to be with a woman who is still connected to someone in the past. I want a virgin, pure ridiculousness like that. Or it could just be practical. Like, so how involved are you with him? What would be reasonable to be concerned about is if there's an ongoing conflict, lawsuits and maybe even threats of violence, who knows? Not likely, but something. I guess what I would be hoping for if I were in Jimmy's shoes is I would be hoping that the father is still involved or the other parent is still involved and that everything is copacetic and going well for everybody.
Kind of just grew up together. We were always friends. I moved around a lot, like elementary, middle, and high school. Mm-hmm. And we were always friends. He was kind of like my constant, like my home base. And then my senior year of high school, I got pregnant. It wasn't one of those things where I was like sleeping around.
Yeah, no, I got you. I don't suspect that.
I know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's details. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't realize that. Yeah, a 10-year-old kid, and she's 28. Yeah, I hadn't done the math there.
Like, still, we were never married. We broke up probably a year after she was born, mm-hmm. which was fine. Like, we co-parent great. He's still part of her life. He's a great father.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be concerned about on that story at all, really. All right. Well, if you ever don't see the videos that I post on your feed on YouTube, a thing that I actually learned recently is that if you actually go to the subscriptions tab, maybe y'all know this, then you're much more likely to see the videos that you are choosing to get notified on, because, the homepage, it's the algorithm, and my videos might not actually show up there. I don't know. But I recently started doing that myself and was pleasantly surprised by seeing videos from creators that I was thinking that they had shut down their channel because I hadn't seen any videos, but the algorithm, for whatever reason, just wasn't feeding me those videos. So that's a little tip for you about how YouTube works if you didn't know that. And I'm an old person, so I'm guessing you all know that. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.